Yo, how's it going everybody? You got Sketch here and welcome back to the channel. On this episode we're taking a look at a shoot 'em up for the Switch that began as a Japanese Xbox 360 release in 2011 and 11 years later became available on the Nintendo Switch and PS4. We're looking at Eschatos, developed and published by Qute, originally releasing in April of 2011 and receiving a port to the modern consoles except for the Xbox, which is pretty interesting. This also comes bundled with Qute's WonderSwan releases as bonus content being Judgment Silver Sword and Cardinal Sins, both of which are pretty addicting. This vertical shooter is quite the experience as you blast through alien crafts en route to the final encounter, and it has a cinematic feel to it much like Ikaruga or Einhander. Before we commence, let's check out the story on this one real quick. The plot is pretty brief and to the point here and goes a bit like this. In the 22nd century, an alien life form known as the Purple Erosion has taken over the moon. Once 3/4 of its surface is engulfed, the aliens will set their sights on Earth using UFOs and other crafts to initiate their invasion. It's up to you to single-handedly shut down their aggression and save the planet. That's really it. Eschatos isn't really spending much time with the narrative initially and letting the action kick off shortly after hitting start. Gameplay wise, you've got a 3D vertical shoot 'em up where you'll go through several stages broken up into 26 total sections. Each area has endless waves of enemies, mid and main boss encounters leading up to the final conflict with the erosive hive mind. You've got two fire modes being your forward facing shot along with the spread shot, and holding both fire buttons together will deploy your shields. As far as item pickups, it's very simple here with just 1-ups and flash icons working as a self-detonating crush bomb. Advanced mode does add a couple of marginal changes in weapon strength with the trade-off of lower shield capacities. Enemies will be coming at you fast and often in sizable numbers, so the action rarely lets up aside from a few moments between sections. You can rack up bonuses by chaining kills together in sync with enemies coming onto the screen, and these can net extra lives which you'll likely need heading into the back half of the game. The screen is often flooded with gunfire and enemy formations, especially later on, and you will get smoked a lot. Boss encounters range from medium-sized characters to at times massive screen-filling Goliaths that spit fire and laser arrays in your direction. Just about all the fire patterns you can think of are present here, even with the tracing lasers which you'll see a lot of especially. The boss fights are all pretty awesome and are going to test your skills with some challenging battles. The final boss fight is especially buck with several forms and numerous bullet types waiting to clap you up, but the fun and intensity stay parallel from start to finish. The challenge does get pretty rowdy here in spots, and there is a credit limit in place, so repeated play is going to be the path to victory here, though this is one of the most addicting shoot 'em ups on the Switch I've played so far. While the game can ease you into how everything works, it'll also quickly humble players until they learn the ropes. The shield can get you out of a lot of tight situations, of which there will be several, and aside from dodging hazards, you'll rarely let off the triggers. Graphics wise, this has a very bright and vibrant style that's presented in a continuous shot fashion. This is mainly where the comparison to something like Ikaruga or Einhander comes in, considering there's not many breaks in the gameplay except for a couple of in-game cinematics which lead into the next scene. Eschatos does this to excellent effect, seamlessly weaving a breakneck pace with its unspoken narrative traveling through the conflict at hand. It's an absolute ride through the game's 26 areas, and it goes by quick once you're locked in. The 3D style this game goes with also does some really sick visual effects in a similar vein to the Sega CD version of Sylphie, which featured pre-rendered backgrounds. Eschatos in turn has the same energy but in the fully rendered 3D space, and it looks solid with a lot of nice visual detail from the sprites to the environments. The environments are all pretty interesting here, and each varies up quite a bit from section to section, even rotating the playfield's viewpoint at times throughout the run. While this isn't the first shoot 'em up to use this sweeping visual style, this is a great example regarding use of that visual style, if that makes any sense. Enemy sprites hit the screen in varying formations and can often fill up the space quickly with not only themselves, but also waves of bullets. The screen can get downright hectic even early on in the game, and these bits keep the action dialed up to the nines almost off the rip. Character designs themselves also all look sick here too, with alien and even some biomechanical enemies towards the ending sections. While Eschatos does throw a lot of patterns at you, even at the base setting, it never really feels quite full-on bullet hell until the back end of the game. But that's not to say this is an intense playthrough, keeping players on their guard. Bosses are the highlight here, with their often gigantic crafts in tandem with the sweeping camera angles that make each encounter fairly memorable as you take down everything from rotating space stations to massive biomutant abominations. The final encounter also changes depending on difficulty, unlocking a few additional forms that do get pretty spicy with the attack patterns, so this is very much a case where it's just as stylish as it is fun to play, albeit with some staunch difficulty added in for good measure. Sound-wise, Eschatos has a driving soundtrack with some absolute bangers as you blast through your opposite Mach 20. Yasuke Yasue drops a variety of jams that carry you along the journey, and the vibe stays hyped the whole way through. This has a heavy feel to Sega Mega Drive and Genesis shoot 'em ups with its music choice, and it all sounds great here for the most part, with often high energy, only letting up for a few moments with its transitions and opening chords before morphing into massive tunes. Sound effects are also nice and crispy here, with some nice audio from each explosion being bigger than the last. The audio has some proper crunch to it here, and it's also part of the equation that will likely have players coming back for more in pursuit of getting to that final encounter. encounter. Much like the tunes, this also has a slight techno-soft feel to it with its audio reminiscent to the early Thunder Force games, and much like those games, the sound feeds into the action rather nicely. In short, Eschatos is an excellent as well as addicting shoot 'em up for the Switch, and if you're able to find an original Xbox 360 version, it's a great addition to any shoot 'em up collection. The gameplay along with the audio is a prime example of a great title for the jar, and it's extremely fun to play while also being challenging to novice and veteran players alike. There was a lot of hype around this when it was announced that a port was coming to the Switch, and it's very much warranted with how much this game gets right while being quite stylish in the process. For vertical shoot 'em up fans, this one is a slam dunk and a must play for the Switch. Be warned, once you start, you may have a tough time putting it down, constantly saying just one more round, as you get closer to the final conclusion and have a blast doing it. Eschatos gets an 8.5 out of 10 and comes highly recommended to shoot 'em up fans. This one is a lot of fun and also is an exciting take on the cinematic shooter, and has a spot next to the heavies of the jar for sure. Once you get familiar with the game, it goes by quick, which is an engaging ride through and through, while being accessible to players of any skill level. It's a little surprising considering this started out as a Japanese Xbox 360 exclusive, yet doesn't appear on any modern Microsoft systems, but it works just fine on the Switch and PS4, along with the bonuses of the Qute WonderSwan titles that are just as addictive as the main course. With all the modes and extras on offer, this has a lot of replay value, and if you're looking for something familiar yet slightly different with a vertical shooter, this one is definitely worth a look. And I thank you again if you made it this far into the video. If you find these videos helpful, that's awesome. I'm glad you can use this as a resource. Check back often, we'll have reviews and commentaries coming up in the near future. But until then, take it easy and stay safe out there. I'll see you on the next one.